The India-US trade deal, often referred to as a bilateral trade agreement, BTA, is a proposed agreement aimed at boosting trade and economic cooperation between India and the United States. It focuses on reducing trade barriers, such as tariffs, taxes on imports/exports, and non-tariff barriers, regulations or restrictions, to make it easier for goods, services, and investments to flow between the two countries. The deal is being negotiated to avoid high US tariffs, like a 26% reciprocal tariff, and to strengthen economic ties, with a goal to increase bilateral trade from $190 minus $200 billion to $500 billion by 2030. Here's an easy-to-understand explanation with details and examples. What is the India-US trade deal about? The trade deal is a set of agreements where India and the US decide to lower or remove tariffs and simplify rules to make trading easier. It's being negotiated in phases, with an interim trade deal expected soon, possibly by July 8, 2025, to address immediate concerns before a larger, comprehensive agreement is finalized by fall 2025, September to October. The deal covers various sectors like agriculture, industrial goods, energy, defense, and digital trade. Key goals: for the US, gain better access to India's market by lowering India's high tariffs on US goods, e.g., automobiles, agricultural products like apples and nuts, and addressing non-tariff barriers like strict quality control rules. For India, avoid high US tariffs, like the 26% reciprocal tariff paused until July 9, 2025, secure better market access for Indian exports, e.g., textiles, jewelry, and protect sensitive sectors like agriculture and dairy. Mutual benefits: increase two-way trade, simplify customs processes, and promote investments in areas like energy, LNG, and defense. Why it matters. The US is India's largest trading partner, with 131.84 billion IN trade INFY25. India has a trade surplus, exports greater than imports, OF 41 minus 45 billion, which the US wants to balance through this deal. Key elements of the trade deal: tariff reductions. Tariffs are taxes countries charge on imported goods. Both sides want to lower these to make their products cheaper in each other's markets. Example: the US might reduce tariffs on Indian textiles, e.g., cotton shirts, making them cheaper for American consumers. In return, India might lower tariffs on US apples, making them more affordable in India compared to local apples. Non-tariff barriers. These are rules or regulations, e.g., quality standards, certifications, that can restrict trade. The US wants India to ease its quality control orders, QCOs, which set strict standards for imports. Example: India's QCOs require imported electronics to meet specific safety standards, which US companies find burdensome. The deal might simplify these rules to allow easier imports of US smartphones. Market access. Both countries want better access to each other's markets for their goods and services. Example: the US wants India to allow more imports of dairy products, like cheese, but India is resistant due to cultural preferences, e.g., concerns about US cattle feed practices. India, however, pushes for easier access to the US market for its gems and jewelry. Sector-specific focus. Agriculture. The US seeks access for products like corn, soybeans, and dairy, but India considers these red lines non-negotiable to protect its farmers. Energy. India may import more US liquefied natural gas, LNG, for stable energy supplies. Defense. Collaboration through programs like India-US for military equipment. Digital trade. The US wants fewer restrictions on data flows for its tech companies. Labor-intensive sectors. India wants lower US tariffs on textiles, leather goods, and shrimp. Customs and trade facilitation. Simplifying customs procedures to speed up trade. Example: faster clearance of Indian mangoes at US ports, or US medical equipment at Indian ports. Future-proofing. India may offer a most favored nation clause, ensuring the US gets the best trade terms India offers to any country. Example: if India later gives lower tariffs to the UK for wine, the US would automatically get the same low tariffs. Why is it complicated? India's concerns. Agriculture and dairy. India protects its farmers. Over 700 million people depend on agriculture, and has strict rules against genetically modified, GM, crops, and US dairy due to cultural and health concerns. Example: India won't allow US GM soybeans because they could affect local farmers and food security. Non-tariff barriers. India's quality rules, QCOs, aim to ensure safety but can block US goods, which the US sees as unfair. US concerns. Trade deficit. The US wants to reduce its $45 billion trade deficit with India by exporting more goods. Market access. The US finds India's market restrictive due to high tariffs, e.g. 30 to 100% on dairy, and complex regulations. Example. US automakers like Tesla want lower tariffs to sell electric vehicles in India, but India's tariffs protect its local auto industry. Political pressure. Both sides face domestic pressures. Indian farmers are a powerful voting bloc, and the US wants to protect its industries under the America First policy. Simple example to understand the deal. Imagine two friends, India and the US, trading fruits. India grows great mangoes but wants to sell them in the US. The US charges a 20% tariff, making Indian mangoes expensive. The US grows apples and wants to sell them in India, but India charges a 50% tariff, making US apples costly. The trade deal? They agree to lower tariffs. India cuts its apple tariff to 10%, and the US cuts its mango tariff to 5%. Both countries' fruits become cheaper, more people buy them, and trade grows. Complication. India says, no US GM apples, to protect its farmers, and the US says, ease your quality tests on our apples. Negotiations focus on finding a balance. Current status, July 2025. Interim deal. Negotiations are in the final stages, with a possible announcement by July 8, 2025, before the US tariff pause ends on July 9th. India's team, led by Rajesh Agrawal, is in Washington to finalize terms, having extended their stay. Progress. Both sides have agreed on 19 out of 24 trade categories, covering industrial goods, textiles, and energy. Agriculture, e.g. corn, dairy, and military equipment are largely deferred to later phases, although some progress on self-certification for GM-free US food imports is being explored. Tariff pause. The US suspended a 26% tariff on Indian goods, announced April 2, 2025, for 90 days, giving time for talks. Without a deal, India could face higher tariffs, potentially jumping from a 10% baseline to 26 to 27%. Key figures. PM Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump launched the Mission 500 Inches in February 2025 to reach $500 billion in trade by 2030. US officials like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick are optimistic. Benefits and challenges. Benefits. For India, lower US tariffs mean more exports of textiles, jewelry, and shrimp, boosting jobs. More US LNG imports could stabilize energy prices. For the US, access to India's huge market for apples, nuts, and autos, reducing the trade deficit. Example. Indian textile companies could sell more affordable clothes in the US, while US farmers could sell walnuts cheaper in India. Challenges. Agriculture. India's red lines on corn, soybeans, and dairy are non-negotiable due to farmer protests and cultural issues. India is unwilling to open its markets to genetically modified food crops due to food safety and farmer livelihood concerns. Tariff risks. If talks fail, the US might impose a 10 to 26% tariff, raising costs for Indian exports like pharmaceuticals. Example. If no deal is reached, Indian medicines could become pricier in the US, hurting Indian exporters. Sources. Times of India, July 2, 2025. Details on tariff negotiations and sector focus. India. Today, June 30th, 2025. Interim deal timeline and Trump's tariff deadline. Reuters, April 11th, 2025. Terms of reference for the BTA. Business Today, July 3rd, 2025. Agriculture, as a sticking point. Indian Express, July 3rd, 2025. India's red lines on agriculture and dairy. This explanation simplifies the complex trade deal into key points and examples. If you'd like more details on a specific sector or aspect, let me know.